From you, Brendon. I really appreciate that you take your time on Saturday afternoon and talk to our AM 1320 listener about all this human behavior, how they have been affecting our real estate market in British Columbia. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yes. 咁咧我就唔好多嘥時間啦，我哋就即刻咧我就想問一問咧阿 Brendon 咧就幾個問題嘅，咁咧就so Brendon, let's get started because we have so many things that we can cover. Okay, so let's take a look at it. We don't want to talk about this record high this and record high that because you've been talking about this all day long or over a year, 2 years has been talking about this. So instead of all this record high here and there, let's take a look at how, if you have any statistics to show us, to share with us, how the buyers' behavior has been driving this crazy market during this, COVID time, and is this sustainable? So let me translate that into Cantonese. 咁咧就想同阿Brendon 咧就問一問啦，嗱個個咧就即係點樣買嘢，佢哋買喺邊度？點解佢哋買嘢嗰個方法咧可以令到我哋個市場咧就係咁瘋癲啦？即係呢過去呢2年咧都幾緊要㗎。咁究竟咁嘅買嘢嘅方法嘅思維咧，係咪可以持續落去咧，令到嗰個市場咧就係不停咁樣升咧 ？So Brendon, let's have your insight.
I think the behavioral trend that's really driven the housing market more than anything in the past year, 2 years since the pandemic is relocation demand. So people selling their homes in more highly populated areas like Vancouver and moving to markets like Chilliwack or the Okanagan or Vancouver Island, either to accelerate sort of retirement plans or because they could work remotely and still go into the office if they need to.
Okay, so let me translate that. 咁咧佢話最主要嚟咧就係過去啊。OK， 過去嗰2年咧，我哋啲人點樣去買嘢咧，就係最主要就係喺即係正所謂啦，我哋可以喺在家工作。咁好多啲人咧就係唔會喺溫哥華翻工啦，咁咧就一路咧係向東移去 Chilliwack 啊、Okanagan 啊，所有呢啲咁嘅地方咧，或者佢哋諗住係 retirement 啦，即係佢哋退休啦咁樣樣。So due to this behavior, all the market over the island, Okanagan, Chilliwack, and all that is really going nuts. Right, so do you think that this is sustainable? What do you think that when the post-pandemic, like epidemic situations, everything, because everybody's talking about, okay, we will peak in the month, coming, and everything will back to, like kind of like normal. So do you think that this will reverse? So let me just translate that into Cantonese. 咁我就問啦。嗱，個大家聽到新聞啦，知道咧就話Omicron 咧就可能咧遲啲咧就會即係1個月左右咧就點樣會到頂㗎啦，咁啊開始咧就會改善㗎啦。咁嘅情況之下咧，咁喺啲即係 Island 嗰啲地方啦 ，Chilliwack 啊、Okanagan 嗰啲咁遠嘅地方咧，咁係咪仲會咁熾熱咧？定係可能會翻嚟溫哥華咧 ？So Brendon, what do you think? Do you think that it will stop and reverse?
I think for those smaller markets especially who saw supply really get to historically low levels as all that demand can flood into their markets, those markets in particular, I think we're talking about prices. I think they're going to sustain because supply is so low. Whether or not the demand will maintain that level is an open question. And then markets that are closer to Vancouver but were chosen because of their proximity to Vancouver and their affordability at the time a year and a half ago. Chilliwack, Abbotsford, Surrey, Langley, markets like that. I think it really depends a lot on remote work, and if you can work from home most of the time, then commuting from Chilliwack once a month or a couple times a month is not such a big deal.
So let me translate that quickly. 咁最主要嚟講咧就係嗰個 supply and demand 問題啦。supply 咧最主要嚟講咧就係話即係唔夠 ，OK 唔夠貨啦，係咪？由頭到尾咧都係最主要嚟講由頭到尾話唔夠貨呢個問題。咁如果你話喺到 Island 啊，或者去到其他啲地方嘅時候咧，過去嗰1-2年咧，令到咧 Chilliwack 啊、Abbotsford 啊、Surrey 啊呢啲地方咧嗰個 demand 咧個需求咧係非常之大嘅。咁但係如果你大為止啫，但係因為嗰陣時我哋嗰個市場咧喺溫哥華市場個價錢咧都係非常之高嘅。咁究竟佢會唔會令到再對翻轉頭，即係翻轉頭啦？啲人唔去咁遠啦，翻轉頭咧，呢個仲係未知之數。但係就係因為最主要咧嗰個市場嗰個供求咧，係咪嗰個供應啊係非常之低，所以個價錢咧佢覺得係唔會有呢個好大嘅轉變嘅。So now let's talk about this suburb housing value. Like you said, is due to work from home, and the BC assessment actually shows most suburb properties have shot up like big time. Okay. However, I also noticed that the urban area assessment is not as strong as well. What age group? Do you have any age group? Statistics to show that who would still prefer to work from home after the pandemics, like post-pandemic. So let me just quickly translate. 咁咧就我而家就問佢啦，因為咧即係持續咁樣去升嘅時候咧，嗰啲即係就算係去到 Maple Ridge 啊、Chilliwack 啊嗰啲咁樣情況之下咧，咁究竟咧嗰個疫情過後咧，即係或者係轉翻正所謂正常啲嘅時候咧，究竟邊一個年紀嘅人啊，佢哋係願意繼續去喺屋企做工咧，定係佢哋情願翻去公司度做工咧 ？So do you have those statistics that you can share with us?
Yeah, it's really interesting because it's kind of all age groups. Statistics Canada did a survey back in April 2021, and it showed that about 80% of basically every age group preferred to work outside the home or prefer to work at home at least half of their hours. So the 15 to 34-year-olds were 76%, 35 to 50-year-olds about 82%, 51 to 64-year-olds was more under 80%. So it's kind of all age groups. Are really into working from home. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So okay. 咁我 let me translate that. 咁佢就話啦，佢見到嘅數據出嚟咧。無論係喺邊一個年紀嘅咧，都係想喺屋企做嘢。嗱，15到34歲嗰啲咧，佢話有76%啲人咧就想喺屋企做嘢；35到50%有82%啲人想喺屋企做嘢；51歲到61歲嗰啲咧，就有80%咧啲人係想喺屋企做嘢。咁即係話咧，佢哋想喺屋企至少咧就佢話即係未必係全部喺屋企做嘢，但係至少咧係有一半嘅時間咧，佢係希望喺自己屋企度做嘢。Wow, yeah. I mean, like basically, is that we want your insight about we lack of space. So if your report shows that your statistics show so many people want to stay at home and work from home, and we're so lack of space, how does it affect our market? Okay, so let's have an insight.
So it puts a lot of pressure on those smaller markets especially where there's people are looking for extra space so that they can work from home, where they can have an office so they can work from. But in a lot of those markets, like Chilliwack, where almost all of Chilliwack's population growth was due to migration out from other parts of the province, that just puts a lot of pressure on the existing housing stock, and we're seeing that all over BC.
OK， 佢嘅意思咧就即係話，因為咁多人想在家工作啦，令到咧講嚟講去啦，成日今日都提到個字咧就係 Chilliwack 啦，嗰個地方就係 Chilliwack 啦。所有呢啲嘅即係10嘅郊區嘅地方嘅時候咧，即係以東行嘅地方咧，就係好多佢哋嘅人口增加咧，就係因為呢個疫情咧令到佢咁嘅情況之下。So it looks like it will sustain, it will stay there, and then the markets will keep on booming in those areas. Would you agree with that?
I think it's going to be a rough couple of years just because I do think that demand is going to soften a little bit over the next year and a half, maybe the second half of 2022. It's just that supply is so low, it's going to take a long time for things to balance out.
Okay, so let me translate that. 佢嘅意思就係話咧，未來嗰幾個月咧都唔使諗咧，就會有即係咩改善嘅啦。咁嗱，嗰個持續嗰個即係嗰個唔係淨係供應啊，而係嗰個 demand 咧個需求咧係咪咁強咧？要2022年下半年咧時候咧先至睇得到。但係最主要嚟講，因為嗰度唔夠貨咧，所以令到嗰個價錢咧係都唔會咧有啲咩嘅好轉嘅。So now as we know, our inventory is very low. How low is it？我知道咧，就係話我哋而家嗰個市嗰個樓盤出售咧就非常之少啊。究竟少到咩程度咧 ？Yes, Brendon, how low is our inventory?
For the province as a whole, we finished the year of 12,000 total listings. There are 5,500 or so listings in Greater Vancouver. For the whole Lower Mainland, I think there were fewer than 8,000 listings. That's for an area of 3.8 million people or something. And it goes on and on. Victoria had like 400 listings total. So
wow.
we've never seen active listings this low.
Holy cow.
If we're talking about housing crises, we have a supply crisis right now.
Oh, absolutely. 咁Brendon 就意思咧就係我哋而家根本咧就係一個危機嘅咁嘅情況咧，就係因為我哋個供應咧就非常之低嘅。佢話咧成個 BC 省咧12月到咗嘅時候咧，只係得12000個樓盤出售。咁咧就溫哥華區啦，大溫哥華區咧就5500個樓盤出售。咁然之後咧，成個大溫嘅時候咧，即係成個即係大溫嘅時候咧，就有8000個嗰個樓盤。咁我哋有380萬人380萬人喺度噶嘛。咁係大溫嗰邊啦嚇，成個就當然係成個 BC 省就有超過500萬人啦。但係我哋大溫有380萬人，咁少樓盤唔夠，咁你話個持續嗰個價錢會點樣樣咧？Victoria 得400個樓盤嘅啫。咁你話我哋從未見過啲咁少咁低嘅樓盤。So what do you think of the construction situations? Do you think that it will be having an improvement? But how is the supply chain affect everything? Like there's so many pre-sale on the market right now. They all say that, okay, we will complete in 2024. I mean, how realistic in normal situation? They also will, like even in normal situations, they don't necessarily on time. But right now we have the supply chain situation. Do you think that out there when they say, oh, we can complete by 20 something and whatever, it actually is possible? So let me translate that quickly. 咁我就同Brendon 問啦，因為嗱個供應鏈嘅問題咧，係一個令到我哋嗰個 inventory 咧，甚至咧係嗰個另外一個咧就係關於嗰個起樓嗰個啦。所有供應鏈都係有問題嘅時候，咁點算咧？究竟而家出邊嗰啲嘅樓花話我可以2024年或者2020幾年去可以建成嘅時候，究竟係咪真係可以 keep 到佢哋個 promise 咧 ？So Brendon, what do you think, Brendon?
So the good news is that there are a lot of units under construction. In Vancouver, about 45,000 units under construction. Some of those are rental, of course. Some are the ownership market. Mm-hmm. It's just that they take a really long time to finish. Those are mostly, especially in Vancouver, multifamily, large apartment buildings, and those take a really long time. From beginning to end, could be 5 to 7 years.
Yes. And
you're right with labor shortages. A shortage of skilled labor on the construction side. It might be aggressive to think that they can finish, by 2024, but we will hopefully we can get a lot of new supply to the market.
OK， 佢嘅意思咧就係話咧有個好彩咧就係話咩咧？大溫地區咧有45000個單位喺度建築緊嘅，咁但係45000個單位裏邊咧唔係個個都係攞出嚟賣嘅，有嗰個 combination 賣嘅啦，即係 condo 啦，亦都有啲咧係出租嘅係 rental 嘅。咁但係因為嗰個人手唔夠啦，亦都有嗰個supply chain 嘅問題啦。每一個起嘅大廈嘅時候咧，都要5到7年時間。我哋希望咧，呢個疫情咧，如果係可以即係改善嘅時候咧，就希望咧可以令到嗰個 supply chain 咧就可以即係希望係好啲，咁令到咧佢哋真係可以話我話幾時可以成即係可以 complete 咧，就可以 complete 呢樣嘢。咁嗱呢樣嘢咧就係一個即係都幾大嘅問題嘅。Now, when it comes to you mentioned low inventory, what is a normal amount of inventory? Because you mentioned that we end with 12,000, for the whole BC, and now we're under 6,000 in Greater Vancouver. So what is the normal inventory that is kind of healthy? OK， 咁我問佢啦，究竟咧嗱，我哋話嗰個樓盤咁少嘅供應，咁究竟正常嘅情況之下咧，我哋應該有幾多 listing 喺個市場上面咧 ？Yes, Brendon.
Yeah, it's a really great question. So in BC, Normal is around like 40,000 listings, maybe 45,000 listings. So to keep kind of prices from growing way faster than kind of normal, that's where we need to be. In Vancouver, that number is around 15 to 18,000. So listings need to essentially triple to get back to normal. And you know, even with sales coming down a little bit and helping the inventories to build up, it's just going to take a long time.
哇，OK，咁啦，阿 Brendon 嘅意思就係話咧，成個 BC 省咧，我哋聽到啦，我哋頭先講12月嘅時候咧，我哋完咗2022年咧係得12000個樓盤，但係正常嚟講咧應該有4萬到45000個樓盤啊。咁佢大溫嘅地區嘅時候咧，就好似話齋啦，我哋頭先咪講咯，有得嗰6000到唔到5500個樓盤。正常嚟講咧，應該要有15000到18000個樓盤。咁你好啦。你究竟我哋如果個疫情就算好轉嘅時候，會唔會真係彈得咁快呢？因為其實基本上我哋而家得1/3嘅樓盤。So basically, Brendon, we only like 30%, you know, 1/3 of the, you know, like healthy inventory situations, right?
Exactly.
So I mean, okay, what do you think? Do you see that even with Omicron goes away, or you know everything? You know, kind of like, you know, after 2 years, all the virus, they go whatever they want. You know? What do you think? Do you think that the people will all of a sudden and start, you know, putting their property on the market? I mean, like, how much time do you think that will it improve this year, or it might go to 2023 or 2024? Let me translate that quickly. 咁我就問佢啦。如果咁嘅情況之下，會唔會真係 Omicron 一完咗之後咧，個個人都諗住哦，可能我而家攞出嚟買嘢啦。咁定係2022年、2023，定係甚至去到2024先至會有好轉咧 ？So what do you think, Brendon?
So there's kind of two parts to active listing. So there's demand, right, that draws inventories down. I think that demand, like sales, are going to come down to more normal levels by 2023. On the supply side, we need a lot more new listings, and the issue there is demographics. We have a lot of people in their late 50s. Like the most common age in BC is late 50s, and the second most common age is mid 30s. And so a lot of those people in their mid 50s have homes, and they're if you're in your mid 50s, most of the time you're pretty settled in your home. You're not necessarily looking to move in the next 5 to 10 years. So that's going to really constrain listings, I think. And so the only really solution we have is to build a lot more homes and get them to market a lot faster.
Well, we need the municipalities, all those, you know, like cities to cooperate before this can happen, right? So let me translate that quickly. 佢話咧，最主要嚟講咧，就係話，除非咧嗰個需求咧係減少，咁否則嘅話咧，你到去2023年咧，你都未必有一個好轉。另外一樣嘢咧，就係嗰個年歲啦，嗱50零歲嗰啲咧，咁啊個個都慣，即係已經住得去舒舒服服啦，佢哋未必想搬咯喎。咁咧就即係 BC 省咧就2個年歲，而家咧就係最緊要嘅。50零歲嗰啲啊，我已經定咗啦，或者又未需要搬住啦。咁啊30歲嗰啲又想買嘢咯喎，咁啊50幾歲嗰啲又唔搬，30歲嗰啲想買嘢，咁你究竟點算咧？唯一個可以做到嘅時候咧，除非你要即係起多啲嘢。咁你起多啲嘢嘅時候咧，除非個政府啦，佢哋可以即係批嗰啲咁嘅批文咧，可以批得快啲，否則咧呢個都係一個好大嘅問題嚟嘅。So no, lastly, before we have our commercial in 2 minutes, do you think that the city, the governments, they're starting to listen to us that we need more land supply? 我就想同佢問啦，政府係咪開始會聽我哋供應好大問題，希望可以多啲土地咧 ？So what do you think? Will they listen?
I think they're starting to. There's some really encouraging comments made by David Eby, who of course is the housing minister, basically rejecting more taxes as a solution and really saying that we need to aggressively expand the housing stock. That's a real change in message from this government, and it's great to see that they're getting on board and finally seeing that supply is the real issue.
Okay, so 嗱Brendon 嘅意思就係話咧終於咧政府肯聽啦。終於咧政府咧就係話咧，即係所以就交咁多稅啦，就希望咧就可以咧起多啲物業啦。咁而家最主要嚟講就係話咩咧？你起嘅時候究竟係夠唔夠人口增加嗰個夠快咧？邊個快咧？而家好似一個比賽咁樣喎。So I think that right now it's like a competition between population growth, migrations or interprovincial migrations and international immigrations. as well as like building, the constructions, like who is faster, can they meet this? It's like it's like like rabbit and turtles race right now, right? So so let me just translate that quickly。而家咧就有少少咧，好似係龜兔賽跑咁啊！究竟係移民嘅人口係快啊，定係起樓嘅密度快咧？咁而家咧就即係正所謂咧，我哋真係喺個龜兔賽跑度啦。So right now is 5:40. We're gonna take a break on the commercial. However, we don't need to take a break on our Facebook Live. So 我哋廣告翻嚟之後咧，再去最後尾嗰個環節嘅。Okay, thank you, Brendon. So we're not, we don't need to stop because our Facebook Live still have friends watching us and talk about this, like craziness of this market. Now, this Omicron things, like, do you think that, just because it dies down and based on what you see that, most likely people will not just all of a sudden say, okay, I'm going to start putting my property on the market. Do you think that the people behavior will really change just because the Omicron, die down?
I think it's because this has gone on for such a long time. I think anyone that maybe was thinking about downsizing, especially, now would probably really want to hang on to the space.
Oh, okay.
So I think that part of the housing stock for sure. I can see maybe if you're thinking about downsizing pre-pandemic, maybe now giving that a second thought. I'm really hopeful, but not super optimistic maybe that we're going to get a big increase in new listings. It would be great to get the market back to a healthy point.
Yeah.
Without sacrificing a lot of demand, because all of that, there is a lot of there still is a lot of demand in the market because of just demographics.
Yes.
A lot of people in their mid-30s. We need to supply them with homes that rather not constrain that demand through taxes or new regulations on mortgage credit. I'd rather just see us trying to expand the housing stock so everyone can kind of share in the market.
Yeah, so when we come back after the commercial, let's talk about the interest rate。而家咧1月15號翻嚟咧，我哋投資跟住最後一個環節啦。咁咧就今日咧，我好榮幸咧就請到 BC 地產局嘅經濟師 Brendon 咧，就同我哋分享一下咧我哋啲即係我哋嗰啲人嘅行為啊，令到嗰個市場咧係點樣有嗰個最大嘅變化。咁我哋頭先咧就講咗即係供應鏈啊，或者係唔夠貨啦喺個市場上面啦。咁我哋就想翻嚟啦 ，interest rate 啦，利息講到明會升啦。究竟嗱，我哋以前嚟講不嬲都講啦，利息升，樓價就跌。究竟而家會唔會係一個情況咧 ？So Brendon, let's come to the interest rate situation. We always in the past, normally, we talk about interest rate goes high, the price will comes down. We are very clear the interest rate is going to go up because of the inflation. Do you think that the price is going to come down? As we know that the inventory is low. So what are we gonna do? Interest rates go up and inventory is low, and then where are we gonna go? So Brendon, share with us.
So we actually have a report coming out about this exact topic on Tuesday morning. When we have little models that we use to forecast these kinds of things, and we looked at history as well, and there was a range of experience when the Bank of Canada starts tightening, as they're expected to do in like April or June this year. And prices don't always fall. There's, I think, of the last 10 rate tightening cycles, I think in like 3 of those, prices were actually higher 2 years later. So it's not an ironclad law. We expect that price growth is going to flatten out quite a bit. And it really depends on where the Bank of Canada ends up. But if they raise rates really high, that's going to mean more of an impact on home prices, but probably not till the end of 2023 because it's going to take a really long time for supply to kind of become much higher than demand and cause downward pressure on prices.
OK，咁咧就好似頭先講啦，正常嚟講咧，利息高嘅時候咧，應該個價錢咧就會有少少即係降低嘅。咁但係個問題就係因為我哋供應嘅嗰個有個好大嘅問題咧，所以就令到咧佢覺得咧就應該就唔會啦。我哋第一次起息嘅時候咧，就應該大概4月到6月嗰個時間啦。咁亦都係睇下究竟咧 Bank of Canada 咧究竟係會起幾多個息口啦。咁佢覺得咧就可能要到2023年嗰時候咧，嗰個息口咧先可能即係真係點樣高翻啲上去，但係佢唔會覺得咧會係離譜咁樣高嘅。So Brendon, due to, I mean, in my personal opinions, due to all the so many countries they're printing money and the inflations and all that kind of stuff, interest rate has to go up. But then the government actually owe more money, trillions or whatever, you know, than any of an individual homeowner. So if the interest rates goes up too high, you know, like I think that the pressure, you know, on the government is more than us. Do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's like they, of course, governments can kind of roll their debt over kind of infinitely, and their interest costs are pretty low as a share of GDP, assuming rates go up a bit. But there does seem to be kind of a constraint. I mean, last time the Bank of Canada could only raise its overnight rates about 1.75%. Historically, if you remember back in like the 2000s, I think the overnight rate, was like 4%, kind of in that range. So I think they're probably might get stopped out under 2% this time around, but it really depends on inflation and how successful they are at bringing inflation down back to their target.
OK， 咁咧阿 Brendon 嘅意思咧就係話咧，如果你大家記得嘅話咧，喺2000年嘅時候咧，嗰個隔夜息啊係4%嘅，咁而家嗰個隔夜息只不過1.75%，你話低咗幾多咧？佢覺得咧就個政府嗰個即係加拿大銀行嗰度咧，應該將嗰個隔夜息率咧就都係 keep 住咧喺嗰個2% 嘅樓下嘅啫。So now let's talk about another percentage that so many people they talk about is that economists or any different reports on the market right now from different companies, they always say, they forecast either up X%, down X%. That CMHC talked about in the past, okay, not anymore, okay, about 30 to 50% drop on the price. Like, how do you guys come up with all this amazing percentage that basically it confuses the public. So let me just translate that. 咁我問佢啦，嗱你知啦，即係唔同嘅機構咧有唔同嘅即係嗰啲預言啊。有時咧就話又升幾%，有時咧一跌就跌話50%。究竟咧佢哋呢班經濟師咧係點樣去即係呢啲咁嘅百分比咧？究竟係點樣出嚟嘅咧？搞到我哋呢啲唔係讀經濟學嘅咧，搞到我哋咧亂晒大龍，都唔知係聽邊個為好。So please share with us, how do you guys come up with these numbers or percentage numbers?
Well, everyone does it a little differently. We're kind of we're really guided by the relationship between the sales to active listings ratio, so sales divided by active listings and price growth, which is a pretty tight relationship. Whenever you see markets, like Vancouver right now, where the sales to active listings ratio is about 50%. It's about 2 months of supply in the market. Historically, that means double-digit price growth. So, we have to kind of make some assumptions about where sales are going to be, where listings are going to be later in this year. But, we're expecting Vancouver to see, 8% growth or something this year. Most of that in the first half, just because supply is just so low and demand is still pretty strong. Sales are still pretty strong. That's going to keep putting upward pressure on prices.
So how much do you think, based on your formula, how much do you think that your predictions, the price might go up?
I think in Vancouver, I think about close to 8%, maybe more. I think the risk is actually to the upside. It's interesting, the way we forecast, of course, is for the full year. So even at kind of the price we're thinking, it's pretty, if prices just kind of stay around where they were in December, and then we compare kind of year over year, that would be like an 8% gain. Like the math works out. So even with prices just flattening out at a very high level where they finished the year, that really strong handoff in 2022 kind of bakes in a certain amount of price increase, unless, we start to see, the curve on prices really bending, and I don't really see that in 2022.
OK， 咁咧其實咧就 BCREA 佢嗰個計算方法咧就係睇下咩咧？究竟咧賣同埋成交嗰個即係 幾多日啦。佢話咧而家暫時嚟講咧，即係嗰個 inventory 啊，即係嗰個樓盤量咧係夠持續2個月嘅啫。咁所以變咗咧都係個賣家市場啦。咁嘅情況之下咧，佢都係咧見到咧係升嘅。咁但係升嘅時候咧，咁我問佢啦，我話你嗰條數點計啦嚇？唔好計人哋嗰啲啦，計你嗰條數啦。咁你嗰條數咧，你覺得會有幾多升咧？佢話大概咧就應該咧睇佢情況咧，就應該係至少有8%嘅。Well, Brendon, like all the report shows that 2021 Vancouver or BC or whatever has gone up like 20%, and Toronto gone up 25%. So like now and I think that in 2020 nobody was expecting or predicting anything like 20% up. So now you share with us is about 8%. Do you think that you're a little bit conservative?
Yeah, that's funny. I tend to be conservative in my forecast.
Yes.
I think we have seen pretty big increases for a couple of years now. Often that slows down, and then we're factoring in higher mortgage rates this year, and we're expecting that to slow down price growth.
Okay.
The reason why prices increased so much in 2021 is a lot to do with
interest
five-year
rate
fixed mortgage rates falling to 1.8%.
Yeah. 咁咧，佢嘅意思咧就係話咩咧？我頭先同佢講啊嘛，我話嗱，所有報告出嚟咧，2021年嘅時候咧，溫哥華咧，BC 省咧就起咗20%，多倫多嗰邊起咗25%，大家聽晒新聞啦，係咪先？咁我話嗱，講真嗰個2020年嘅時候咧，就冇人去估計，冇一個人咧會估計咧話有成20%增長嘅喺溫哥華。咁我話我話你而家同我哋講話今年咧可能得8%，我話你係咪保守咗咧咁樣樣？咁佢意思咧就話係嘅，佢係屬於即係經濟師梗係要講保守啲嘅嘢啦，係咪先？咁但係佢保守得嚟咧，最主要嚟講咧就係話即係希望咧就係個利息咧會增加啦。咁如果嗰個球啊嗰方面可以即係跌少少嘅時候咧，咁希望咧就可以唔係話即係升得咁緊要啦。Okay, so now let's talk about another part is about like you mentioned earlier with a lot of different areas, the suburb and all that kind of stuff. Which area, which municipality do you see perform stronger, better, more sustainable than others? So let me just translate that. 咁我就想問佢一樣嘢，就係話咧，佢成日都見到嗱，頭先又講 Chilliwack 啊，又 Okanagan 啊嗰啲咁嘅嘢啦。咁我話究竟咁嘅情況之下，佢見到咧邊個嘅邊個市咧係嗰個持續增長咧係可以持續嘅 ，OK， 即係可以 sustain 得到嘅啦。So what do you think?
So, when we look at kind of sustainability and just fundamentals, long term especially, I always look for markets that are that have a young population and strong population growth. And what always stands out when you do that kind of a filter is markets like Surrey, one of the fastest growing municipalities in Canada, has a young population, so a lot of households forming. And has some of the supply issues too, so that's going to put upward pressure on prices. Markets like that, I would have said, retirement markets like the Island and the Okanagan pre-pandemic, but the prices in U.S. markets went up a lot over the past year and a half because of such a flood of migration.
咁咧佢嘅情況咧，佢覺得咧即係佢要睇就係譬如話年青人啊、人口增長啊，咁佢咧都係講係 Surrey 嗰邊嘅 ，OK， 咁即係如果大家啦想投資嘅時候咧 ，Surrey 咧都仲係一個非常之好嘅。咁 OK now，let's put it this way, Surrey as we know that we have been talking about it, population growth, like even though they have inventory situations, but because of the cities they grow the SkyTrains all the way to Langley, like. How like Langley is also growing like crazy. The price is like really a lot of pressure on that, and some of the pre-sale market actually is not it's not that much lower than in Burnaby area. So do you think that it's just shot up too fast, too much, and do you think that it will kind of like settles or things like that? Let me translate that. 咁咧我就同佢講啦，就係話雖然我哋頭先不嬲講 Surrey 啦，但係因為 SkyTrain 咧一路去到 Langley 嗰邊啊嘛，咁 Langley 其實有好啲嘅樓花咧個價錢咧同 Burnaby 咧冇分別嘅 ，OK？ 咁我究竟咁樣嘅時候，究竟係咪可以持續咧？So Brendon, what do you think of that?
Yeah, Atlanta's a really interesting market because there's parts of it that are like monster homes on kind of what was farmland. And then there's the other kind of core part where you're really building a lot of more kind of multifamily townhouses and that kind of stuff. But it's not serviced by public transit very well. So I think that's one of the things it really has going for it is that expansion of SkyTrain or public transit will make it that much easier to live in Langley. Because right now, if you live in Langley, it's a little bit more difficult in some of the markets to get downtown by a public
No kidding, no kidding。咁嗱，佢嘅意思咧就 Langley 咧，佢覺得係一個即係都幾特別嘅地段啦。而家因為咧SkyTrain 又未去到啦 ，transit 始終都唔係咁方便啦。落去 downtown 翻工嘅話，咁當然啦，如果你在家工作就冇問題啦。但係 Langley 咧係即係有即係個情況就係有好多啲係farmland 啦。咁你 farmland 咧就即係嗰啲即係農地啦。咁農地裏邊咧佢嗰啲大屋咧就真係好巨型屋嚟嘅，真係好巨型嘅。你即係講緊可能過萬尺嗰啲嚟嘅。咁然之後咧就另外一樣嘢咧就係，但係咧到佢個市中心嘅時候咧，佢有好多啲 multi-family 喎，即係公寓啊或者係 townhouse 啊咁樣樣。咁所以喺呢個情況之下咧，即係始終咧未至到咧就真係咁好似 Surrey 咁方便，未至到Surrey 咁方便。So do you listen to your own advice and buy something in Surrey?
I wish I was. I wish I had the confidence in my own opinion, that kind of confidence. But unfortunately, for some reason, I think we're very good at talking about these things, not as good about acting on them.
Yeah, I think that we always do that, right? So it's good that we give advice, but we never listen to our own advice, right?
That's right.
Yeah， 咁我笑啦，即係我笑下 Brendon 啊，我話你究竟咧自己咁多預測啊、估計啊，即係知道咁多數據嘅時候咧，佢有冇聽自己嘅預測咁啊去 Surrey 買啲嘢咧？佢話我哋好多時咧就好似話齋啦，俾意見人哋嗰時咧就俾得好好嘅，但係聽自己嘅意見有時咧就唔係真係咁乖嘅。咁即係嗱一句講晒啦，即係有時咧就係容易俾意見人哋，但係咧就自己講意見，即係聽自己話嘅時候咧，有時真係有少少出入嘅。咁好啦 ，so let me just finally want to talk about one thing is that now do you think the BC real estate is ever gonna bubble pop? Because people always like to curse us, you know.
Yeah,
What do you think?
I don't want to jinx anything. I mean, it presupposes there's a bubble, and generally not bubbles that go on for 20 years.
Yeah.
I think we've been hit. These markets have been hit with some pretty big shocks. Going all the way back to the first started hearing about bubbles in before the financial crisis. We had a pretty major financial crisis and recession, and that wasn't enough to do it. We've had several rounds of taxes and tightening up mortgage credit, and that didn't do it. And now we have a global pandemic and one of the deepest recessions in Canadian history, and that didn't do anything. In fact, prices just kept rising. So I'm not sure what it would take. It would be something pretty strong. I do expect, if mortgage rates went a lot higher, that could bring prices down a little bit, but I don't think we're talking about a huge magnitude.
Yeah, so the conclusion is no, it's not going to pop.
So long as they know, yeah.
OK， 咁咧阿 Brendon 嘅意思咧就係話咧，我問佢嘛，我哋會唔會爆啊？會唔會爆泡沫咁樣爆啊？你知啦，全世界啲人都會話，哎呀溫哥華爆泡沫啊，多倫多啊爆泡沫啊咁樣樣。咁我就阿 Brendon 就意思咧就係話咧，即係2008年啊金融風暴啊，經過咁多次嘅上上落落啦，咁咪即係最大今次咧就係個疫情啦，我哋都冇去上，即係都冇跌啊。所以變咗咧，佢基本上總結一句咧，唔會爆嘅。咁所以咧，大家如果係真係對溫哥華始終都係一個非常之有信心嘅咧，唔需要擔心。雖然係貴，但係貴咧都有我哋貴嘅原因嘅。咁今日咧就好多謝咧阿 Brendon 咧就同我哋分享咁多咁寶貴嘅意見，同埋唔係淨係講數據嘅，講我哋人性嘅關係。所以咧就真係今日好多謝阿 Brendon 同我哋 share 佢一個另一面嘅數據嘅。So Brendon, so thank you so very much joining us and share so much of your insight and not just the like record high statistics, things like that. So this is way more interesting than listening to your normal statistics in all the other medias, I think. Thank you so much, Brendon, and I sure will invite you back. Thank you so much and have a great evening. 咁咧今日咧就 thank you。咁今日咧就好多謝大家收聽啦。我同 Brendon 呢個暢所欲言啦。咁咧就總之唔需要擔心，一句講晒，溫哥華係一個福地嚟嘅。咁啊，下次再同大家去講另外一個話題啦。Thank you so very much, guys. Thanks for watching. Bye.